Hello, everyone. I am so excited to talk to you today about a topic that is near and dear to me, which is breaking into product as well as moving up within your product career. So, if you don't know me, my name is Nada, and I'm an executive career coach. But really, what I help people do is go through what I call a career reinvention. It sounds a bit scary, but it's not as scary as it sounds. I do believe that whenever we are going through a change in our career, we are in many ways reinventing ourselves. I'm not saying that we're going on a eat, love, pray journey where we're chasing our purpose, but we're actually rediscovering who we are, what brings us joy, what do we actually want to do with our career, and how do we design a career that aligns with our life. So, when I first started my career coaching practice 6 years ago, my main focus was actually working with product professionals. Since then, that has expanded to working with people across many domains, whether it's hospitality. I mean, my recent win was working with a general manager within hospitality, or even education. If I sit here and list all the professions of my clients, I'll probably be here all day. But the gist of the story is that my bread and butter, my beginnings of coaching has been rooted in product because I started my career in product and I've spent so much time within product and I understand it inside out. And this is why I'm very passionate about either helping people break into product or moving up all the way to the C level. Okay, so what I'm going to do today is I'm actually going to share three client stories with different situations and how I have actually helped them break into product. Maybe the next video is going to be about helping you grow within your product career, but for this one, we are mostly going to focus on breaking into product. Now, the biggest misconception that I get from people is that they feel, especially if they are senior professionals, 5, 6, 7, 10 years within their career, they feel that they have to start over when breaking into product. However, that actually hasn't been the case for many of my clients. My clients who broke into product did not have to break in at the associate product manager level or even the intermediate product manager level. In fact, I've had clients who broke into product at the senior product manager level, and I've had clients who broke into product at the VP of product level, believe it or not, despite not having the title. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you three stories. One of them is of my client, Rashid, who was in Mexico and was an entrepreneur. He had a very strong background in software engineering. I helped him land at Amazon as a senior product manager while still in Mexico. The second story that I'm going to share with you is of one of my dear clients who basically was doing a lot of pro bono work, was in UX, doing a little bit of everything, jack of all trades. And then I helped her land a senior product manager with a six-figure offer. And I will also share with you one of my clients. His name is Heath. He had a 25-year dream of getting into a product company within gaming, and he became the first US hire at a top company in Europe called Miniclip. So let's go through one of these one on one. And maybe I'll throw a bonus one of my client who actually went from a medical physician to a product manager. Crazy story. So, let us go into the four things that made every one of them successful. The first one, the first thing that I wanted to share that made every single one of my clients, successful, and what I actually look for a client, is they stopped describing their experience and they started reframing it. So if I go with my client, Rashid, who was an entrepreneur in Mexico, he came from a mechatronics automotive background. He was an engineer and he ran his own software consulting startup factory in Mexico for years. So he reached out to me on LinkedIn after he posted something in the LinkedIn career group saying that he wasn't sure what to target. And when I looked at his LinkedIn profile, I saw that he was trying to be everything. He was positioning himself as an engineer and also positioning himself as a product manager. He was positioning himself as a project manager. And it wasn't clear what his value proposition is. It was also what wasn't obvious what role he was targeting. There were also multiple barriers that are stacked on top of each other. First of all, he was pivoting from founder to professional. At that point in his career, he has never worked for anyone before. He was basically running his small startup. And he had this basically story that he was telling himself that there's no way a larger organization would hire him because all he knew was basically working for himself. And the way he was also presenting his experience made him come across like a job hopper because he was literally just positioning himself almost like a freelancer. And because he started multiple ventures, it almost looked like, yeah, he was hopping from one company to another when all of these companies were part of his own ventures. Okay, so let's talk about what happened with him. When we worked together, the first thing that we did was we had to validate if product management was truly the right direction for him. Sometimes what happens is I get clients who are pretty clear about what they want to do. And sometimes I get clients who have no idea what their next move should be. Rashid was somewhere in the middle where he had an inkling that he wanted to get into product management, but he just wasn't sure if he had what it took to get there from a competency perspective, believe it or not, even though he actually ended up at Amazon, which is crazy. And so what him and I worked on together was validating that if it is a viable option. The funny thing is when he was trying to, make that happen on his own, he was actually getting rejected, not even from like larger organizations, from startups. So it started impacting his confidence and he was skeptical a little bit about whether it was possible or not for him to get there. So, one, because I come in with a context of being in product for a very long time, for more than 15 years, and having worked with other clients, I was able to give him that validation and point out the proof that he can actually pursue this. Then the second thing that we did is we stopped talking about what he actually delivered for clients and we reframed it from a product perspective. That what he actually was doing was launching products. He just didn't see it that way. So once we reframed that and armed him with the right vocabulary in terms of describing what he's done in a product-centric way, then he started getting interviews. He went from being rejected at startups to actually getting interviews with Google and Amazon. The other thing that I see with a lot of professionals who have been playing the role of a product manager but do not have a title, first of all, you're not getting the mentorship that you need from someone who is a more senior product professional. Your company may not be giving you the training or the vocabulary to describe what you have been doing in a product-centric way. And this is why it's difficult for you to make that pivot. Okay, now I want to talk about another example of a client that I helped. So the other example is the client who basically was doing a lot of pro bono UX research work. Now, with this client, she was actually located in Canada, and she went through this immigrant journey where she was taking any of those survival jobs and doing a lot of pro bono work and, taking these certifications in order to learn how to actually, um, become a designer. She went into that design path for a while, and it was not really resulting in any UX roles. So when she came to me, we were sort of in this crossroad where she had to pick between going to design or going into product management. And so her and I sat down. We did the same thing that we did with my other client, Rashid, where we looked at the different products that she worked on. What was the role that she was playing? And I asked her, do you want to only be involved in the discovery phase when it comes to the product, or do you want to actually take the product all the way to launch? And based on her answer, we saw that she was leaning more on the product manager side. Now, the thing that made it very difficult for her to actually not only make that decision, but also land that product management role was that she was a jack of all trades. She was just really good at so many things. It was hard for her to see her zone of genius and what differentiated her. So what we ended up doing was really arming her with the ability to tell her story with a structure that engages the hiring manager and really position her as an authority within product management. So we packaged up a lot of the pro bono work that she did, and we didn't discount it. Because remember, just because it's not paid doesn't mean that the work that you did wasn't valuable. She did real work, and she actually created a lot of impact and results for these startups that she did pro bono work with. The other thing is that what was missing a little bit is that she wasn't really telling her story effectively. And one of the things that I do with a lot of my clients was I arm them with storytelling, basically formulas. One of the things that a lot of my clients get wowed by that really differentiates them, especially in front of hiring managers, is the technique of telling their origin story. So what is an origin story? If you've ever been in an interview, you most likely have been asked the question, tell me about yourself. And it can feel like the most annoying question because it's so open-ended. And it's like, okay, like, what do you want to know about me? Like, how do I decide what to share with you when I've been on this planet for more than 30 years? And the method that I teach my clients is to find a pivotal moment in their career that led them into realizing that they love building products. One of my clients, Elaine, as an example, who actually came from a background in journalism and then project management, and I helped her pivot into product. She was quite skeptical because as part of the journaling exercises that I get my clients to do, she told me the story of how she was working at a gym, and whenever people would basically go through the gym, tap their card, they would get hit by this turnstile as they go in. And so she came up with this incredible solution. She paired with the guy in IT where they built this visual indicator that would help people see that it's safe for them to get through. And look, it seems like a very simple solution, but back then, at that mom and pop gym, they didn't have the resources to actually make it easy for people. Anyway, when she told the story, it was incredible because just imagine that. Like, she was a student working at a gym and she took the initiative to actually launch that product, to actually pay attention to what her customers needed. And the joy that came from her voice in terms of sharing her why and talking about how her why was to make people's life a little easier. So imagine saying that in front of a hiring manager. That 100% would differentiate you. And so one of the big things that I arm my clients is the ability to tell their origin story. And when you tell your origin story in a way where you really make it clear that you're A, passionate about what you do, and B, that you've actually been doing the work despite the title, that's what gets them bought in. So that's one of the tools that I armed, I will say, every single one of my clients who was trying to break into product. The third thing that made all of these clients successful is they stepped into the identity before the title arrived. I work with professionals all the way to the C-level. And honestly, it doesn't matter what level you're at, whether you are mid-level in your career, whether you're a senior individual contributor, a director, a VP. The people I find who are successful, A, they bet on themselves. They believe in themselves. They have a vision for themselves. They're not afraid to step into the identity that will take them to the destination that they want to basically embrace. So, what do I mean by that? Have you ever known someone who is not happy with their situation, always complains about it, but never does anything about it? There's so many people that way. Now, the high achievers who end up being my clients are the ones who stop complaining, who realize that they are basically the barrier to what they want to achieve, and they do something about it. And they're not afraid of taking the risk because with anything in life, there is no such thing as zero uncertainty. And I know a lot of folks out there will say, oh my God, yeah, the market is bad. I need to lower my expectations. It's not possible. It's too hard. All of that is not in a high achiever's vocabulary because as a high achiever, when there's a will, there is a way. And all you need to do is to believe that this is possible for you, and the how sorts itself out. So with one of my clients, Heath, the way he was able to step into the identity before the title arrived was he asked himself this question: can I help these people? Because that's the whole game. If you bring so much value to the table, and that regardless of what role you take on, you'll be able to figure it out because you're that kind of person, and you have this entrepreneurial mindset where you're willing to roll up your sleeve and do what it takes to make anything happen, you likely have a product management mindset. That's really what the bottom line is. Okay. The last one that I wanted to share is every single one of these clients didn't quit before the miracle. So my client Rashid, his case was so complex because we had to deal with a sponsorship situation. We had to deal with moving countries. At the beginning, he was not getting interviews. He was not getting interviews anywhere. There was an element of, confidence. There was an element of were now basically speaking in a different language in interviews. And so there had to be that learning curve, and there had to be this incredible grit for him to keep going. And the thing is, he was in my community for literally a year, watching other people get offers. Now, the average person, when they see that, they get demotivated, they quit, they blame the process. With him, he kept going. And you know what? It paid off. Because what's a year if it means you end up at a company like Amazon that ends up basically relocating you to a different country, paying for your relocation, and adding six figures to your salary? Imagine adding six figures to your salary. Is it really going to matter that it took a year versus 3 months or 4 months? So that's the mindset that made these clients successful. Okay, so what I wanted to say is I am launching a new cohort. Normally, I only work with executives, but I decided to launch an additional cohort this quarter where I'm going to be working with professionals who want to pivot into product. It doesn't matter to me at what stage in your career you're at. All I would ask is that you have a minimum of 5 years of professional experience. And it doesn't matter to me whether you are wanting to basically break into an intermediate product manager level, or it's possible, you have 15, 20 years in your career. You're quite senior. Maybe you're a director, but you've never really been niched down into product and you're considering making that switch. It's very possible. Here's the bonus story that I'm going to share with you, because I've shared all of these case studies of basically senior individual contributors who pivoted into product. One of my clients, Stephanie, she was in the same organization for more than 16 years. And she was at the director level, but she was wearing multiple hats. Her role was not clearly defined. And in fact, her title was very vague and broad. She wasn't very technical, but somehow the way her company categorized her, they categorized her as an engineering manager. And so when she was going into all of these interviews, the recruiters didn't see her technical enough to be an engineering manager. It worked at her organization, but not outside of her organization. So when her and I worked together, we looked at her entire story, her entire value proposition, what she loved about her role. We realized that what she actually loved was launching products from 0 to 1, spending more time on the business side, but also being the bridge between engineers and the business. She had a lot of imposter syndrome because she kept telling me, I've never had the product title. There's no way I'm going to pivot into product. And in the end, I kid you not only did she land a product role, but she actually moved up. She moved up from a director of product to a VP of product. Isn't that insane? And it is, in the last 2 years when the economy wasn't great. So that just goes to show, when you're willing to take ownership of your career and your lane, and you're willing to niche down, and you don't have that fear of, oh my God, I need to cast my net wide because I'm going to miss opportunities. When you have that conviction where you choose your own path versus let organizations dictate it to you or recruiters dictate it to you and put you in this box, magical things happen. So if this resonated with you, what I encourage you to do is to book a career diagnosis with me. How do you do that? It's very simple. I'm going to show you. How you do that is you go on my LinkedIn profile. And under my LinkedIn profile, under the heading, there is a button to book the call. So let me do a screen share to show you how to do it. I have like a million windows open as usual. Okay, so this is my profile. As you can see, under the heading, there is a button that says book an appointment. And once you land on this page, I highly encourage you to watch this video because it shares with you my story. It has a few basically clients who share their experience working with me. In fact, one of them is my client Rashid that I helped land at Amazon. And all you need to do is take 2 minutes to fill out this form. It's going to give me an idea of your current situation so that we can make the best of the 15 minutes that we're going to have together in order to figure out if we're a fit or not. Now, a few things about this career diagnosis that I want to clarify so that there isn't a misunderstanding. This isn't a coaching call, okay? This is a call where we figure out if I can help you or not by sitting down with you, asking you questions about what you've done in your career. And it is a call to figure out if it makes sense for us to work together. Okay? Now, what I'll say is a prerequisite to be ready to work with any coach is you need to believe in yourself. I can't convince you that you can do it. I'm not going to go and apply for the jobs on your behalf. I'm not going to be the one taking action. I'm not going to be the one learning. You're going to have to be able to implement all of these things, which means that you need to believe in yourself. Think about athletes. In order for them to win the race, they're not going to go in and hire a coach that's going to help them train for the Olympics and expect that coach to believe that they're going to win more than themselves. You hire the coach because you believe that you deserve more and that you're capable. And the coach gives you the approach to get there. Implementing the approach correctly obviously depends on the coach being able to explain things in a way that you understand. But no one is going to do the work for you. And so if you're the kind of person who's not able to dedicate 1 to 2 hours a week to work on your goal, whether it is attending coaching calls and doing the homework, then this is not for you. Okay? The second thing, in order to qualify to work with me, is you need to want to do this beyond just making money. If you want to pivot into product because you just care about making money, then this is not also going to work. I believe that people become successful in their careers and they're able to achieve goals if it's more than just the money. If you have a passion, for building products, if you've gotten a taste of building a product even unofficially, if you want to do it because it brings you joy and you want to make an impact, if you want to progress in your career, those are good reasons to break into product. And yes, you could be a great fit. The third thing I wanted to say is if you're the kind of person who doesn't enjoy collaborating with others, then you're not going to enjoy being in my program. Because what I'm going to say, having done this over 1,000 times, I don't believe in the traditional one-on-one coaching. I do not. In fact, studies have shown that people stick to their goals when they are in a group environment, in a classroom environment. This is why you don't do your MBA one-on-one with a professor. They put you in a classroom so that you can learn from your peers. So if you're the kind of person who doesn't want to learn from other people, just wants, to sit down with someone and have therapy sessions, then also this is not the right fit. Okay? Now, if you think highly of yourself and you're a high achiever and you know that when you set any goal for yourself, you're able to achieve it because you're a hard worker and you have the desire, then I would absolutely love working with you. All right? I hope that this has been useful. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a like because it will help someone out there who's looking for the answers. There's a lot of misinformation out there. And, part of the reason why I do these lives is because I want to arm people with the right information. Obviously, I don't have the capacity with 48,000 followers to work with 48,000 people. And so I find that I get a lot of joy from sharing my expertise as a very senior career coach who has not only helped over 1,000 people through career transitions, but has actually coached other coaches and has built a very solid curriculum based on all of these reinventions. And something that I tell my clients, I actually build the program with them because when I work with every single client, I learn from them. I learn from the path that they have taken. And I infuse a lot of my own learnings from the corporate world and how I navigated change in my life. Because at the end of the day, if you think about it, a career change is actually a life change. It requires grit. It requires a very agile mindset. And not only have I navigated multiple pivots myself, going from consulting to product to wearing multiple hats, but I've actually navigated a personal change in terms of coming to Canada as an immigrant at the age of 18 and building my whole life, on my own in a foreign country. Okay, I am cheering for you. If you're listening to this and you're in a career that doesn't bring you joy, or, even if your career is good on paper, you deserve to do work that challenges you. And you deserve to do work that basically aligns with your potential. Just because you have it better than someone else doesn't mean the bar should be someone else. The bar should always be you. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, and I'll see you guys soon.